And with that, all of that being said, let's welcome Laura and Kyle with Retrieving Freedom.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to be able to present at A Million Cups. I'm really excited to be here. Before I kind of get started, I just want to highlight and showcase some of the individuals who are joining me today. So we have two of our fosters here that are raising some of our dogs. I know it's kind of hard to be able to miss our adorable companions that are with us today, but we have Tammy and Liz here who are fostering Graf and a Tori. We also have two of our staff members here with me. We have Ashlyn, our program coordinator, as well as Laura, who is our outreach communication coordinator. So I know I've seen a lot of familiar faces. I'm really excited to be able to present our mission, what we do, and how we do with what our organization serves. So Retrieving Freedom is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our mission is to change lives through the training and placement of service dogs for two populations: veterans with disabilities and children with autism. We as an organization have taken a holistic approach to the whole process of how can we best serve our clients. You'll notice that in our mission statement, it has a unique wording in there. It says to change lives through. And I'll get to that in a second here, because rather than just focus on the end result, our program has found ways to impact our local and statewide communities as a whole, just through our process. So our organization has two facilities. We were co-founded up in Waverly, Iowa, and then we built our national headquarters right here in Sedalia towards the tail end of 2019. Our organization at capacity houses about 140 to 120 dogs in our program. We are slowly building our numbers back up. The pandemic hit a lot of organizations in a different way, and canine inventory was the one that hit us the most. So that typically equates to about 70 dogs entering our program every year. Now our organization uses two and a mixture of two breeds. So labs, Goldens, and then crosses between those breeds. So lab Golden crosses. Not because we think that they're the best breed, they're just the breed that works best for our program. I'll get into the specifics of how our program operates and takes our dogs through our training process. But what you'll notice is that these dogs touch so many different lives. They're at the end of the leash with so many different individuals. So I need a breed that's going to be able to be worked just as well with that individual as it does with me or any of our staff. There's a lot of great breeds out there that make service dogs. Some of them are better off if the final placement is the one training the dog. So our program just uses these breeds. Like I said, not because we think they're the best, they're just what works best for our program. Our program also uses purpose-bred dogs. So we need to be able to evaluate all of the medical, environmental, and temperamental background of each and every single dog prior to its placement. That way we can be able to identify, is this going to be the right dog for this individual who has a high level of social isolation, as well as, is this going to be the right dog to mitigate their specific disability? Our organization was accredited back in 2018 with Assistance Dogs International. It's also called ADI. ADI is the highest standard when it comes to the service dog industry. Last time I counted, there is just over 70 programs within the United States alone. There's a handful more all across the country. And of that 70, there is only about 40 that are accredited to be able to place psychiatric mobility dog, or what are classified as PTSD dogs for veterans. And our organization is accredited to be able to do both. So I really want to deep dive into how we accomplish our mission. Starts out very, very early with our early canine development. What this is we have a handful of in-house breeding dogs. We also partner with reputable breeders across the country. And those dogs, right after they're born, start an early socialization program. This gets them exposed to just novel stressors so that when they enter our program, they can be able to handle the workload that comes with a service dog in its future working career. Now, at about 8 weeks of that dog's life, we wean that dog away from its litter, wean the dog away from its mother, and it enters into our foster training stage right then. So this is when our dogs get distributed out to our full-time puppy fosters. And these full-time puppy fosters are raising the dogs from 8 weeks of age all the way up to about a year of age. Now, these are the individuals that have the biggest hearts within our organization. As I mentioned, we have Liz as well as Tammy over here who are raising these dogs. They are tasked with the important role of doing some very key foundational work into these dogs prior to them advancing into training. Those foundational commands, those foundational exposures consist of basic obedience, housebreaking, crate training, as well as public socialization, public socialization, public socialization. Get these dogs out into so many different environments. Go to work, go to church, go to restaurants, go to grocery stores. Expose these dogs to so many different environments so that nothing's novel to them in their future working life. Now, at about a year of age comes probably one of the most difficult part for our volunteers and our fosters, where they have to give the dog back to the organization. It is not an easy task. These individuals have dedicated their whole year into this dog. They've loved this dog. They've had it as a part of their family for the year, but now it's going on to do its next task, its next stage of training. I won't sugarcoat it to be able to say it's an easy transition. Some of our fosters like to fill that void with another puppy right away, which we absolutely love. But it is very rewarding to be able to see that this dog goes on to be able to do something more for that individual than it would ever do for our selfish needs, or our individual needs, I should say. The dog becomes so much more than just a canine at the end of that individual's leash. The ADA classifies service dogs as mobility assisted devices. So in a crude sense, it says this is a wheelchair, a cane, a crutch. But typically, this is a lifeline for the populations that we serve. And I'll get to that here in a little bit. Now, there's a lot of different ways programs handle or operate when it comes to how the dogs transition through their program. There is a big culture shock, or a big shock when it comes to the dog, from that dog leaving that foster home and that family's home and entering our advanced training stage kennels. Now, we try to reduce that transitionary stress to be the best stewards for our dogs. And some of the ways that we do that is maybe a simulated turn-in where the dog will spend a weekend out at our kennels, so it's not the first time that they see that environment. One of the other ways that we found success is I could take these dogs, put them into what we classify as impact programs, have a greater benefit for our local as well as statewide communities, and then reduce the transitionary stress for each of our dogs. Some of these impact programs consist of college programs. So we have a partnership with a few major universities throughout the United States. We have a partnership with the University of Missouri and their ROTC cadet program, where we're teaching these cadets about veteran affairs, veteran initiatives, while they're learning to do some of the intermediate training of these service dogs. We have a partnership with Iowa State University, where animal science students are getting hands-on applications about canine learning theory, canine behavior, and training. We have a partnership with Wartburg College, which classifies their social work as well as their leadership department. So you can learn a lot about interpersonal communication by having a dog at the end of the leash, because everything, when it comes to dog handling, could either be nonverbal, or canines don't speak English. They just have that retention and repetition. So they understand through association. And then social work department, these individuals who are going off to be therapists, going off to be counselors, have another venue to be able to understand what a service dog can be able to provide and be able to benefit their future clients later on in life. So outside of our university programs, we also partner with a couple of correctional facilities throughout the United States. In these departments, we typically work with a majority of incarcerated veterans. Now, in this process, if you think about our correctional facility and how our correctional facilities, or the Department of Corrections, and how it's set up, is it removes any sense of contact, intimacy, empathy as a part of their punishment for whatever crimes they committed. Now, through thorough screening and evaluation, we can identify individuals within the correctional department, incorporate just a small step of that empathy, that intimacy, that connection, give them a purpose, give them additional job skills so that when they re-enter society, they have these skills, these tasks that they can be able to go and get another job. This allows us to be able to impact these populations that may not have had the same benefit in any other situation. Now, the benefit towards our dogs is phenomenal. If you think about a correctional facility, the whole daily routine is very structured. Here's when they go to this task. Here's when they can go to this activity. Here's when they go to this workforce. So the dogs adjust to that very strict routine very, very well. Now, we continue to collect data on a lot of these different programs, and one of the data points that we really, really like to highlight is we have a correctional facility program down in Pearl, Mississippi, just south of Jackson. And there we work with a large population of incarcerated veterans. Now, the state of Mississippi's recidivism rates, individuals who come back into prison after being released into society, is about 40%. 40% of individuals who get released enter the Department of Corrections again. Now, the last time I collected data, which was at the end of last year, there was 262 individuals that went through our program and 2 re-entered the society. So we are having a major impact, not on just those individuals, but the statewide infrastructure and the cost that it takes to be able to put individuals through the Department of Corrections. Now, one of the other programs that we like to highlight is our teacher foster programs. We partner with elementary school teachers in our local communities. We have a handful up in the Iowa, and we established a partnership with Sacred Heart here last year. Now, this is where their teachers take these dogs that are in their intermediate stage training and use them as educational devices in their classroom. And it also exposes our dogs to situations that I can't replicate in our training environment. A classroom setting with a bunch of kids around is not something that I could be able to do on a routine basis. So the benefit to those kids to learn about disability awareness and etiquette, as well as give them a sense that they could be able to have a part in this dog's life and impact a veteran or a child's life in the future, while getting our dogs set up for a future environment that they're working in, is a fantastic partnership. Outside of that, we also partner with a couple of summer camp programs that are inclusive for kids with disabilities, where the dogs are just utilized to be able to reduce separation anxiety from their home environment and help with that peer-to-peer interaction. Now, at the end of that impact program, it takes about 4 months on typical timelines. Those dogs enter into our advanced training. So that period allowed that dog to disassociate its bond with its foster. Now, they don't forget the foster. So when they see that puppy foster again, they definitely go crazy. But it gets them that ability to respond and work for that different individual. And when they complete that process, that's when they hit their advanced training. Now, our advanced training process consists of a very thorough medical evaluation prior to them moving forward. We check their hips, heart, eyes, do a full evaluation so that I'm not placing a service dog that is going to be retired in 2 years and I'm starting that process all over again with the burden of telling that individual who's bonded to their service dog that this dog can't work anymore. So once a dog has thoroughly passed its medical evaluations, that's when we start its advanced training. Now, all of our dogs are trained to be able to respond to the same level. So they have the same handling style, they have the same commands, but at a certain point, we let the dog's personality display to us what their pathway is going to be. With their energy level, with their handler management, with just some of their strengths, we identify, is this dog going to be better for an autism client, or is this dog going to be better for a veteran client? Now, when that happens, we can be able to start putting those client-specific commands on, and we rotate them through all the individuals who are accepted into our program. So an individual, and I'll get to our application process here in a bit, but an individual will work with a handful of dogs. I like to equate it like the online dating profiles to our dogs and our clients. We figure out what their personalities, their likes and dislikes are like, and then we identify what's going to be their best match. A little bit of it's trial and error. A lot of it is the mastery that our trainers put into their skill and identifying what's going to be the best match. Now, as that dog has identified its future partner, then we put the very specific commands that individual is looking for. So for our veterans, we train for both physical mobility as well as psychiatric mobility. Some of the tasks these dogs are able to perform on the physical mobility side is pulling an individual in a manual wheelchair, opening and closing doors, turning on and off lights, retrieving dropped items, bracing to be able to help a veteran back up into a standing position. For our psychiatric mobility or our PTSD dogs, what we see these dogs perform is positional commands, where the dog will orientate itself around the handler. Now, our dogs are friendly to a fault, so they're not going to be doing any active deterrent or protection work, but If I hypothetically was a veteran checking out at Walmart and I have someone pushing a shopping cart too close to my backside, I could position the dog behind me and give myself a little bit more of a buffer space to reduce that overall anxiety or that social anxiety that builds up, or a social trigger. Some of the other commands that we see with our psychiatric mobility dogs or PTSD dogs is grounding and disrupting behaviors. So when a veteran is starting to escalate through their anxieties, through their triggers, the dog can be able to disrupt that to focus on what's at the end of the leash rather than what's in the environment. Outside of that, we also train our psychiatric mobility dogs to do nightmare interruption and disruption. So that looks in a variety of different ways, whether it's turning on lights, tugging a blanket off the veteran, or just hopping up and licking them in the face so that they get interrupted in an appropriate manner. Most of our veterans are looking for a cross training, looking for some psychiatric mobility commands, and they may have a banged up back, knee, hip, so we can be able to train that physical mobility. So that's when we really pair it in together. Now, for our autism dogs, we train those dogs to be able to do a variety of similar tasks like we see with the psychiatric mobility dogs. So anxiety, grounding, and disruption. We also train these dogs to do deep pressure therapy. So if that child is having a meltdown or escalating, that dog can lay across the child and provide that calming factor, almost like you think of a weighted blanket. Outside of that, we also train our autism dogs to be able to perform tethering or a passive anchor. Now what this looks like is these dogs have modified vests, and the child will wear a belt around its waist, his or her waist. And if that child displays any eloping or bolting behaviors, that dog is trained to passively lay down. And that allows the parent to be able to redirect that child in a healthy direction. What this can do is it can prevent a child from bolting in the parking lot of Walmart or bolting out into the street when they're going for a walk, and be able to reduce and be able to navigate in a healthy direction. Some of the other things that we see as passive benefits for our children with autism is just that social bridge. Allow these kids these healthy interactions to facilitate, whether it's peer-to-peer or peer to the general public interactions, so that every sane person, when they see a dog in public, wants to know about it. So what we teach our parents with these children with autism is redirect everything back to that child. So if a stranger comes up and says, "Hey, I love your dog. Can I say hi to it?" The parents say, "This isn't my dog. This is my son or my daughter's dog. You may ask them." And that gives them that social interaction that they may not have ever gotten before. Now, education and awareness for autism, which is very, very resonating right now since it is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month right now in April, is important because the general society is starting to understand that disability just a little bit more. But when you see a child having a meltdown in public, it may not be the first thing that we think of. So we may either think this is a misbehaved child, or we may just avoid that interaction altogether. So that social bridge that these dogs perform allow these kids to have the experience that they may never have had. Now, after a placement is made, we continue to do yearly follow-ups. So what this is we meet with these families, we meet with these veterans to make sure that this dog is a well-oiled machine and they have all the resources they need to be successful. Now, our application process, I talked to our dogs through, let me talk our clients through. We have a very painless application process that consists of a written application, a very relaxed phone consultation to get a better understanding of what they're looking for, and then we invite them out to our facility to have an in-person consultation with our staff and allow them to handle our dogs so that we know what the baseline is, and we can build an individualized training plan to get them successful with a service dog. Now, at that time, it takes about a year to maybe a year and a half to be able to identify the right dog for that individual. But our program takes a very holistic approach, as I mentioned earlier, about how we can best serve our clients. So each of our facilities is equipped with a residential campus. We like to focus on our local families and our local veterans, but we don't exclude individuals that are from a different state. So we have individuals travel here to Sedalia or to our Waverly, Iowa facility from Texas, from California, Oregon, specifically just to be placed with our service dogs. And while they're here, they can reside at our facility free of charge. Now, I talked to you how they work through a variety of different dogs. We do that online dating profile to be able to make the right match. We identify the match and we provide that services afterwards. One of the things I've not hit on is all of our services go to no cost to our clients. There is zero charge to our families that have children with autism. There is zero charge to our veterans to be able to receive a dog from us. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is we don't want a monetary amount to be the hindrance of that individual reaching the next level of independence. Now, everyone has a different definition of independence. Not greater, not worse, but just different. And what we want to do is identify how can we make this individual, how can we make this family more independent. Now, we don't charge our clients. We don't require any fundraising. How are we able to continue our mission? Everything we do is based off of grants, donations, and fundraisers. So that allows us to be able to offset and not put that burden on our clients. And so our staff takes that on independently. Some of the ways that individuals can get involved and be able to be part of this dog's journey is through sponsorships. There is a flyer that is listed on all of your guys' tables here. I have a little breakdown up here of the sponsorships. I want to hit on kind of what they are able to provide. So the puppy sponsorship is someone that allows our dog to cover those initial costs of acquiring a dog, getting them through that 8 weeks, and getting them into a foster home. These sponsorships have the ability to be able to provide a name for some of these dogs. So we have some families, we have some memorials that dedicate names of some of these dogs to sponsor, to be in the memory of, to be in recognition of an individual who may not be with us anymore. After that, we have our litter sponsorships. These are sponsorships that allow us to be able to continue to have our in-house breeding litters and provide these purpose-bred dogs that have been identified for specific traits, behaviors, attributes, medical clearances to continue our mission. After that, there are some kennel sponsorships. So you may see that there's a great sign above the kennel. And what we have individuals do is in perpetuity for the remainder of our organization, that kennel sign is going to hang above their kennel. And that's the individual who sponsors that specific kennel to be able to allow us to house these animals in a humane, cleanly, and healthy environment while they're with us in advanced training. Our final stage sponsorship is what allows us to be able to make that placement, make that online dating match, and continue to be successful. And then we have our full training sponsorships. So this is what it costs for us to do a dog all the way through and the remainder of its working life. So when people say it really costs us $50,000 to place a dog, we put $50,000 at placing as well as continuing to do those follow-ups, do those additional trainings at no cost to our clients. Now, I want to be able to advertise some of the opportunities that you guys can be able to be part of our team, be part of this amazing mission that we have going on right now. We have a few events coming up this year in the Sedalia area. I don't know if anyone attended the past 2 Wings for Wags that was down at the craft beer cellar, but this year we're looking to really boost it up. So last year I think we had 12 contestants. This year we're gonna have 20. I think we're gonna have live music this year. We're really boosting this up. The craft beer cellar, the individuals who manage Wings for Wags with us have done a phenomenal job. So even though it's all the way over in September, we are having meetings, we are hitting the ground running, and we are securing some pretty exciting prizes as well as raffle items. Outside of that is our graduations. Now, the past 2 years, due to the pandemic, due to individuals' concerns for traveling, we have not been able to have an in-person graduation. This is where you really get to see where the rubber hits the road with our mission. So you may see some of our dogs in our community. You may see some of our veterans working with our trainers or our families with autism working with our trainers in our community, but you don't get to see the final product. Our in-person graduations, we invite all of our placements back from the past year, and we get to be able to hand off the leash, where you see every individual that has played a part in that dog's life, from a foster, from a breeder foster, from a college student, to an elementary kid student, to a representative from our correctional facility programs, hand off that leash. So you really get to see it takes a whole village to make one of our service dogs. We also have a graduation coming up in Iowa that we'll have more information about as well too. So if anyone's interested in making a road trip a little bit north on I-35, we'll have a graduation up there as well. Outside of that, we always encourage individuals to come out and tour our facility. I could talk to you guys all day about how we take a holistic approach with our program, but until you get to stand there and see the accommodations that our facility has, to be able to see the amazing property that we have on the north side of town here, you could really feel how we make an impact on these families and how we make Sedalia a staple for individuals to travel to be able to get one of these service dogs. And then we also have our monthly e-newsletters. This is where we send out all of our updates. A lot of them consist of cute puppy photos, so if I need to twist anyone's arms, you get to see some adorable puppies once the litters are born. But you also get to see some of the placements. So when we make a placement in a month, we'll highlight that individual in our newsletter. And through that process, you can always be able to stay engaged, whether it's through placements, whether it's through volunteer opportunities, whether it's through our events that we have in the local community. We invite you guys to participate in any sort of manner. I also wanted to include some of our social media tags so you can be able to see these dogs on a routine basis, see some of the amazing work that they're doing while in training, and then hear some of the amazing stories and the successes that our clients are achieving when they get placed with these dogs. Now, I will just end on a few of the successes that I've heard, that I've been a part of, and that have been, they give me goosebumps. So, the first one is when people tour our facility, they like to look up into our residential rooms and they'll see video cameras that are directed just at the bed. And what we utilize that for on our veteran side is documenting the physical manifestation of their nightmares so I can train the dog specifically to respond to them. Now, we ask their permission to be able to do that. If they feel uncomfortable, we turn the cameras off and we cover them. One of the other ways that we use these cameras is with our kids with autism. Sometimes the parents or us as handlers affect the natural interaction. So if I really want to see if this dog's would be a great match, I could let them hang out in the bedroom, I could pop on Netflix, and I could pull up the cameras in the living room and I just sit there and watch to see what that natural interaction's like. Now, I was doing this with a family up in Iowa, and all of a sudden the mom starts crying because the little boy did a routine where he kissed the dog, said, "God bless you and keep you," and shut the blinds. And the mom was tearing because that's the same exact routine that she did. And it really resonated that that was something that was meaningful. The other successes that we've heard is families being able to go to a restaurant for the first time as a whole family and not having to leave because of a child, not having to leave because the veteran can't handle the social triggers in that environment. So some of the small victories that we take advantage of, that we take for granted on a daily basis, are the major wins that these dogs perform outside of their daily tasks where they mitigate the disability. Now, I have always loved presentation styles where I stop talking and I love to hear what everyone likes to learn about our program. That's just kind of a topical view, but I'd love to have a very interactive Q&A session. So if there's anyone that has any questions about how, what, or when we do things, please let me know. Yes, sir.
Hey, so since they do service dogs as well, they do all types of service animals. Are you going to be broadening it into the service animals?
That's a great question. So let me see if I'm getting this correct. We do service dogs, and you're wondering if we're going to expand into other animals. We did have a very good and funny post on April Fool's where we threw one of our service dog vests on one of our cats to say that we are starting a service cat program. That was an April Fool's joke. Under the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, there's only 2 species of animals that are classified to do service work. That is canines, and then miniature horses can be able to do some mobility work. We're just going to focus on canines. I always like to do be a master at one thing, right? So that's a great question. Yes. Yes, sir.
Actually got 3. Number 1, what's the typical number that you run through the program a year, animal? Number 2, what kind of backlog do you have as far as people assisting or asking for assistance? And then lastly, which I think I already know the answer to this, but are you ever in a situation where you can use rescue there?
Great question. So let me pick those apart, and please tell me if I didn't hit on all 3 of them. First off, how many dogs do we have come through our program? About 70 puppies enter our program each year, and that means in 2 years, those dogs are all coming through our program. Now, one of the things that we always take pride in is that we have a very high standard for what we classify as appropriate for service work. Right now, our placement rate is about 40% of our dogs. 40% of the dogs that come through our program actually make it as a service dog. Now, I get the question quite a bit. What happens to the other 60 dogs? We find great purposes for those dogs based on what their strengths and weaknesses are. That doesn't mean that these are bad dogs. They just are dogs that have a different work life. Now, we've had dogs that have way too high of a ball drive. So if there was a tennis ball rolling through here, that dog would knock over every table to go get it. Not appropriate to be in a public place, right? But we partner with other nonprofits like the Search and Rescue Foundation or the Working Dogs for Conservation that are looking for that type of drive to train for their work, and they place them with first responders at no cost. We've got other dogs that do really great in one environment. So they do really good at whether it's a school, whether it's a home, whether it's at our facility, but going to Walmart and then to church and then to this next stop, way too much stress transitioning between those environments. So what we've identified is maybe this is a great dog that could do therapeutic work. We don't train therapy dogs, but I could place you with a dog that has a great foundation and give you the resources to get the therapy training. So we have a dog with the Sedalia Police Department right now. I'm not sure if anyone knows Kaya, but Kaya was one of the dogs that went through our program, and she identified that she does great in one spot. So she's with the police department helping those law enforcement officers and their clients be just that natural stress reduction in the facility there. Other dogs that we find go out to be just great pet dogs to local families who are looking for a dog and don't want to have to go through the puppy stage, which I completely understand. So we do adopt those dogs out. Now the second one was, what is our backlog for our clients? It is about a 1.5 year process. And that's just to make sure that we have the right dog to mate with the individual. I would much rather be able to stand proud on that number than to say I am making the fastest placement, not the right placement. So it is really a diligent work that our trainers and our staff are able to perform. And then the other question was, can we use shelter dogs? And that is a great question. There's a lot of programs out there that do use shelter dogs, and they're near and dear to my heart. I have a rescue greyhound at home, so I have a dichotomy in my life between the well-trained purpose-bred dogs and my dog at home that is the worst behaved dog that you guys will probably ever see. Now, we do not use shelter dogs, mainly because the populations we work with, I want to ensure I know everything about that dog, medically, environmentally, temperamentally, so that if I place a dog, I don't have to run the risk of that dog biting that child in the future based off of an experience that I didn't know about before I got it. Now, I completely support the shelter programs, but it's just with the work that we do, with the populations that we serve, I need to make sure that I'm working with the stock that can best mitigate their disability and not cause any additional concerns. Those are great questions. Did I hit on all three of them? Perfect. Yes.
So I hate to cut off great conversation, but we're kind of pushing it on time.
Okay.
But I would welcome any questions after.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The last slide I have is how you can help. And I always say time, treasure, and talents. Time, volunteer. Talents, become one of our fosters. We help you train the dog, so it's not like you guys need to do it all on your own. So our staff does a great job at that. And treasures. Like I said, none of these costs go to our clients. So any little bit goes to help so that we don't charge these veterans, we don't charge these families with autism to be able to receive this level of independence. And I'll be sticking around, so if you guys do have any questions, please stop by, say hi. We can set up the dogs in a training situation so you can say hi to them too. So if that kind of sugars you guys in a little bit, please come on over. So thank you guys.